And we're live
We'll do it live.
Number 20.
Number 20.
Holy shit.
Big show tonight.
Big show tonight. We've got our boss.
Our boss.
Boss man, Rob Kahn.
El Patron.
District manager.
District manager.
District manager.
Oh, shit. Super excited.
Yeah, you know what? I got to write that one down, too. District manager.
Oh, shit. Where's my pen at? Fuck, did I lose it already? No. Jesus Christ. Put that pen in the middle so I can.
So before we get to Rob, we gotta do the sponsor shout out. We want to make sure we get paid,
or whatever.
Yeah,
right. Free clothing and food.
Exactly. So big shout out to No Judges Needed. Remember, use OMGH, which will get you 25% off your first order.
25% off, man. That's a huge discount. Yeah. I see people buying No Judges Needed apparel all the time at my gym, and I think to myself, it's 25% off. If you would have used OMGH,
right, you fuckers,
you would have got 25% off of whatever you bought. And for the fact, even if you don't train at GTS, you don't personally know Troy Regano. It's like Troy Regano's a great dude, man. Like, it's owned by Jiu-Jitsu Black.
Even if he wasn't a great dude, he makes great products.
He makes great products. but know that if you're giving money to No Judges Needed, you are giving money to a jiu-jitsu sponsored and jiu-jitsu run business. So,
speaking of that, we also have OTB Delight Cafe,
right? Another jiu-jitsu owned product.
Meal preps, and they have two restaurants, right?
Just one now. I think they're opening another one up in Southtown.
Okay, gotcha. But they do great meal preps, and actually they're coming to the gym tomorrow night.
Oh, are they coming down to Bradenton?
Yeah, they're coming down to Bradenton. Of course, I'm not going to be there because I'm going to be at a concert with my son. I'm an idiot for scheduling that. I got to talk to her and let her know.
Man, I pulled my head.
But and also CDB, you and me, guys. Right. OMGH again for both OTB Delights and for CDB, you and me. Use OMGH promo code to get money off on your order. And that's it for the sponsors.
Well, no, we got a CBD Delight. We talked about CBD. I just missed it.
CBD, you and me.
All right, there it is. CBD,
great stuffs.
Good product.
So big win last night for Matt Frivola.
Yes.
I think his last UFC fight ended in a draw, which is very, very not likely. It's a very uncommon occurrence.
Yeah. Matt Frivola is awesome. I've been training with Matt Frivola for a while. It's one of those things that we're actually going to have him on the podcast next week.
So yeah, he's going to be on next week, right?
It's really cool, and I'm sure that our guest can expand upon this and has many more options to do that. But it's one of the few chances in my career that I actually have someone that fights in the UFC that will look at me and call me coach, and that's a pretty cool thing, man. It makes me feel proud that happens that way.
Yeah, and he did a bang up job last night, man. You know, we can talk about the fight when we get Rob on, but man, it was a great performance.
Great fight, man. He dug deep and came back from a tight spot. Actually, he was winning the whole time, but I mean,
well, he did take a couple of, he got popped a couple of times.
The kid he was fighting was tough.
Yeah, he got kneed. I remember right in the beginning, he got kneed in the head.
A freak of nature.
And but man, he used his takedowns, his wrestling to really dominate the fight, and I thought it was really incredible.
And to win on that stage when it all matters, because this was pretty much do or die for him.
Yep, absolutely.
What else? Keenan Cornelius.
Keenan leaving Atos. That doesn't surprise me because I saw something about how he went to the gym late one day and Andre wouldn't let him train because he came in late.
Right. I
was like, who the fuck would do that?
I've trained at Atos before with those guys, and I have friends of mine. I won't particularly say his name, but I know someone that used to train with us. He trains out there.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
So does everybody else. But I don't want to say his name now. And he was talking about how, Keenan's philosophy and ideas on training may not particularly mesh with the Atos experience. And I think Atos is a very formal, very strict, very regimenting training schedule. And Keenan strikes me as the type of person that, he's a hard worker, obviously, and he trains harder than probably anybody else on the planet. But he's also a very laid-back, casual kind of trainer. So I think that maybe that personality didn't quite mesh with Andre.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I want my students to show up on time, but at the same time, I've had, one student pass away from a motorcycle accident, and I just had another student get into a near fatal accident. So I'm like, be there on time if you can, but take your time getting there and be mindful of the traffic.
I think it's more than just the punctuality thing. I think it's more about him not buying into the Atos ethos, for lack of a better terminology.
Could be.
They're very it's all about team. It's all about Atos in general. And I think Keenan's more of an individual.
Sure.
Chewy seminar went pretty good last week.
Yeah, the Chewy seminar was good. We had a big turnout, about 41, 42 people came in for that.
Yeah, Chewy's
He
cool.
does,
dude,
he does
man.
a good seminar. He does like the night before, he does an open mat with a Q&A, and he rolls with people. The next day he does a seminar, and then he had a dinner and where you get to know people that came to the seminar. So it was a pretty cool experience for people. And we'll definitely have him back next year.
Chewy's cool, man. It was cool to hang out with that guy. It was cool to have him.
And he came to pro training. That was cool.
He came and trained with us a couple times. He came to stretch with us. He's a good dude, man. He's really down to earth and a really intuitive person. And you can tell that he has a legitimate jiu-jitsu background. He's been a black belt for a long time. He knows rolling with him. It's one of those situations where you kind of recognize the fact that he's just not going to make mistakes, and it's because he's been training.
Basics are freaking on point.
He understands like jiu-jitsu at another level. And then
what else do we have? Last thing before we pull on Rob, Tom Hardy gets his second stripe on his white belt. Somehow that made the news. Somehow people give a shit.
So my personal idea on that is this: like, I don't think it's necessarily that Tom Hardy is trying to tell the world that he got a second stripe on his white belt.
Coaches are.
No, I mean, yeah, but I think it's that the world cares. And the reason why the world cares is because it's not him that put it up there. He just put something on Instagram. Like the rest of the world is excited to the fact that Tom Hardy is doing jiu-jitsu.
No, I get it. I know.
I mean, he's not doing anything different than any other jiu-jitsu beginner would do when they start training jiu-jitsu. You get a stripe on your blue belt.
Do we know where he trains?
All over the place, I think.
Is he one of the celebrities that just takes private lessons, or does he actually get on the mat with everybody?
So to a certain degree, you have to make sure he's safe. So he's probably taking a lot of private lessons, and or the people he's training with are handpicked by his instructor to make sure he doesn't get hurt. But as someone that teaches a lot of private lessons to people that are important people, like that's part of what they've taken private lessons for.
See, that's what it is, man. You just want these motherfucking celebrities to come to you.
No,
you want to come take private lessons for you. That's why you're always defending them.
I want everyone to appreciate and reap the benefits that jiu-jitsu has to offer. And the more celebrities that do jiu-jitsu, the more. All right, fuck all that.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
No one gives a shit about Tom Hardy, and no one gives a shit about anything we're talking about. Right. The only thing people give a fuck about is
Rob
the
Kahn,
man of the hour. So let's bring on Rob Kahn, the true king of the North, in honor of Game of Thrones. Rob Kahn, Hoist Gracie black belt.
Pull him up, honey.
Oh, God.
Wrong button.
But please,
there he is. Say hello, Rob.
What's up?
Robert Irvine Kahn.
There you are. So
Tom Hardy, huh?
Tom Hardy.
Yeah. What do you think about Tom Hardy getting his second stripe on his white belt, Rob?
Another thing I don't give a shit about.
Thank you. I knew you'd side with me on that.
Tom Hardy getting a second stripe is not really something. Although I heard he got his ass beat by the kid from the Transformers.
Really?
Which one? Who's
a couple of years ago, yeah.
In a jiu-jitsu match or in like a fight or what?
A fight. He punched him on the set.
Oh, really?
Wait a minute. Are you talking about fucking Shia LaBeouf?
Yes.
Oh,
Shia LaBeouf beat up Tom Hardy?
I've heard shit about Shia LaBeouf too. I heard he's a bad dude, man. He's a scrapper.
Beat up Tom Hardy on some set. They did some like early 1900s movie a few years ago. I actually saw the movie. It wasn't that great, but
I remember you telling me about them. I remember you telling me about that movie. They were like bootleggers or something.
Yeah,
right?
they were bootleggers. It was like like when alcohol was illegal, and apparently like Shia just got all pissed about something and punched him in the face several times.
That's pretty.
Jesus Christ! Maybe that's why he started doing jiu-jitsu.
That's probably why he does jiu-jitsu now. Yeah.
I've heard some stories about Mr. Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, he doesn't seem right in the head.
He's a little off.
He's nuts.
Yeah, he's a little bit nuts, and bless his heart for it.
But that's okay. So let's, for the people who don't know, let's introduce Rob. Rob is a Hoist Gracie black belt. In fact, he's, we always like to say he's the first Hoist Gracie black belt, but we have to include the other 4 or 5 people that were in that group.
4 guys with me who got our belts at the same time.
Can you name those guys?
Of course, yeah. Buddy Clinton, Greg Thompson, John Burke, Pat Hardy, and myself.
Excellent,
awesome.
Excellent. Cool. That must have been a big day.
It was awesome. And
where'd you get that? Where was that? In Florida?
It was in North Carolina. Hoist called me up like 6 months early, and he was like, "I need you in North Carolina for a seminar." I'm like, "The hell do you need me in North Carolina for a seminar?" So I kind of knew it was coming, but like of being Hoist, he hit it like to the very last moment before he handed us the belts.
Right.
So really didn't know. but we kind of knew. Like,
Right.
you know, it was just
That's
one
cool.
of the things.
Is
Kind
that
of like when he gave you the stripe the last time he came around there.
Yes.
Like he waited till everybody left.
I had 100 people in the school, all my closest friends, and everybody leaves, and then he promotes me. Like,
is that
I had 100 people here who were my closest friends. You can't give it to me then? I love them to death, but still, Jesus.
is that kind of an old school approach? The not announcing promotions and just kind of giving them on the whim.
Like, you know, when I got promoted, blue, purple, you never knew it was coming until it came. I mean, God forbid you ask about it. And then,
right.
You know, it was verboten to ask about it. So it was just like whenever he gave it to you, he gave it to you.
Right.
Why do you do things different? Because I know that you don't ever tell people about their promotions up until black belt, but you usually give about 6 months notice to people that you're going to give a black belt to. How come you do that?
Because I assume, you know, most people train a decade for a black belt. You know, it's a big moment for people, and I want them to be able to have family and friends there to see them get it.
Sure.
Like when I got mine, I was by myself, and, you know, I was with my brothers in jiu-jitsu, but I didn't have anybody there, family or friends.
Right.
I didn't know if it was happening or not, so I wasn't going to have everybody fly to North Carolina for it. But so I, you know, just something I like to do.
No, it was great for me personally that you did that for me, because I got to have my father be there, and, you know, as you know, my father has dementia and he's kind of going downhill. So that was kind of a big moment, and I'm glad that my dad was there to see it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing to do. You know, like they've trained a decade. Like, I screw with you on your purple belt, I screw with you on your blue belt, I screw with you on your brown belt. For black belt, I'll be straight up and let you know when it's coming.
What do you think some of the benefits are of that unconventional approach to not allowing students to know when they're getting things and just having like a feel for understanding?
I get it, because it's like, that's really, you shouldn't be there for the belt. You should be there for learning,
right?
Getting better, and it shouldn't be about the next belt. But it always, you know, that always gets in the way. So right. I get that too. You know, like, you know, Hoist always says, you know, the belt only covers 2 inches of your ass. The rest you got to cover yourself.
Right.
So, I mean, you could have a purple belt on and be a monster, you know, and tapping black belts.
But you're not. You're still a purple belt.
But you're a purple belt. I mean,
right.
To me, purple belt was my favorite belt.
Yeah, I enjoyed purple belt too. I like brown belt a lot more. But
I like purple.
Only because brown belt was a boring belt, and I feel like my game really got to that next level of brown belt.
I love purple. When I was a purple, it was in the 90s.
Yeah, because you were the only fucking purple belt.
You were like you were a fucking unicorn.
Me and Matt Serra pretty much.
Yeah.
And you know, it was such a rare belt to see an American with a purple belt, so I still had that kind of respect, right. But also wasn't a black belt, so it didn't matter.
Right.
You know,
so tell us a little bit of what it was like coming up in jiu-jitsu in the 90s. I'm always fascinated by that, because it's, you know, today's world jiu-jitsu is everywhere. Like it's accessible to everyone. All you got to do is turn on YouTube, or there's 5 schools in every city. Right. You can train wherever you want. But back in the 90s, you had to seek it out. You had to go look for it.
Yeah, it wasn't like that 25 years ago. Right. Like when I started in 95, there was no schools on the East Coast. Henzo wasn't there yet. If you wanted to train jiu-jitsu, you had one option. You got in the plane and you went. There was no YouTube, and you got in the plane and you went to Torrance, California, and trained at the Gracie Academy. That was it. Like that, if you wanted to do it, that was it. There was one guy in Red Bank, New Jersey, named Craig Kukok, who had gotten his black belt in Brazil, but he had a big falling out with the Gracies, and I already started training at the Gracie Academy, and they basically made it very clear that I couldn't go train at Craig's.
Yeah, I remember he did a video with Henzo or something, right?
Yeah, then he screwed Henzo over, and now he's running for his life somewhere. He's hiding in like Nebraska or some corn-fed state where Henzo can't get a hold of him.
How did you go about getting promoted or learn it? I mean, did you go train? I
would go out. I went out for the summer of 95. I went out to Torrance, and I got my blue belt in 14 days. And then...
That's amazing. Hold on. Back up. That's amazing. You got your blue belt in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 14 days.
How did that happen?
I got there June 1st. I never sparred before. John Burke, who's my mentor, and you know, responsible for getting me involved with the jiu-jitsu and meeting the Gracies, and I owe John a lot. John, I was training for the Golden Gloves in Binghamton, and John had exposed me to jiu-jitsu, but I was so busy with the gloves, and it was my senior year of college, and interviewing for a job and all that stuff. I'd taken a few private lessons with John, but we never sparred. Like, I'd probably taken 3 privates.
Jiu-jitsu privates.
Jiu-jitsu privates, yeah.
Right.
He showed me one day we sparred. Like, the first day I was introduced to it, John just beat the shit out of me. And I was like, this shit's amazing. And like, holy shit, I just got mauled. And so I wanted to see it. I had an interest, but I was already committed to the gloves. And I had to make that the priority. So I probably took three privates with John, 3 or 4. He showed me like the Americana. He showed me how to pass a guard. He showed me the UPA, maybe a couple more things. But John was very adamant about not sparring until you had a kind of a base in every position. So I didn't spar. Like I said, only 3 or 4 times. And then John invited me, and I thank God he did this. He asked me, he's like, I'm going out to California for the summer. Do you want to come? And it was funny. I had 2 offers for that summer. It was my senior year. So I was graduating. I was starting my job in September, and I had 2 offers. My friend George, his mother was like a diplomat. She was like the UN ambassador for Greece, like some crazy high-end job. And he had a house in Mykonos.
John Burke?
No, this guy George.
Okay.
Mykonos. And he was like, hey, you want to come with me to the Greek islands this summer? And Burke was like, hey, do you want to come with me to Torrance and live in somebody's fucking house for in a tiny little room in fucking Compton for the summer while we train jiu-jitsu? And I had these 2 options, and I had a girl at the time I was dating, and I knew the fucking Greek islands were not going to fly with her, so I took the jiu-jitsu offer, and I went and I trained jiu-jitsu for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that, 6 or 7 weeks. And I got there June 1st. First day, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I had asked a bunch of questions to John, but maybe not the right ones. And I didn't even know who taught the classes. Like, I knew Hoist was going to be there, but at this time, he was like the undefeated UFC champ.
Right.
So he was like a god amongst men.
Like god. Yeah. And so I didn't even really ask who was going to be teaching me. The first day we get there, we had to rollerblade from Compton.
I can't imagine you fucking rollerblading.
Well, you have a picture of that.
After about a week, I said, fuck this. And I bought a bike, which sucked because then I had to tow Burke.
This is like Napoleon Dynamite.
Every day, I'm towing Burke from Compton to Torrance every day, and then towing him home at night every day. I got in great shape, but like, the bike wasn't a great idea. I should have just learned how to rollerblade.
Right,
but,
you did twice the work.
Yeah, because I didn't know how to stop on rollerblades, so I had to crash into shit to stop. Like, I would just point myself at a fucking telephone pole or something. I'm into it.
Fall over in the grass.
I was great moving. I could move great. I just couldn't figure out how to stop, so I just would find it to crash into. And every once in a while, we got lucky, and somebody had a pickup truck. We throw the bike in the back, and they give us a ride home. But if we didn't, we were fucked. I had to fucking tow Burke. But it was a great summer. We had a blast. And I got there June 1st, 1995, and Hoist Gracie walks on the mat. Like, I'm like, oh shit, he's actually teaching. Like, I just assumed he'd be there. I didn't know he was going to teach the classes. And so my first class was the Hoist. And this blue belt beats the snot out of me, taps me out. He gets a stripe on his belt after he beats me. Not because he beat me, just
because he got his time, yeah.
Yeah. And then the next guy beats me up, and he gets a stripe on his blue belt. And I said to Hoist, I go, what, you tap out the guy from New York, you get a fucking stripe here? And there was absolutely no laughing whatsoever from Hoist when I said that. He just like looked at me. I was like,
was that the first interaction you had with him? First time you ever spoke to him?
First basically statement I ever said to the guy. I go, what,
that's
fucking guy from New York, you get a stripe here?
That's so Rob Kahn, by the way.
He just looked at me like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, I will shut up, sir. I am sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. And so like 2 weeks later, I trained like 12 hours a day. Me and Burke would take the morning classes. And then at lunch, it was an amazing opportunity. And I really got to thank Hoist and Horion for giving it to me. Horion had this library of jiu-jitsu fights that I've never seen before or since. Challenge matches, jiu-jitsu, like all the Gracie in actions, the original unedited tapes. Horian had them in this library, and me and Burke would go in lunch and we would watch these tapes over and over and over again. And then me and Burke would go spar in one of the private rooms during lunch for 2 hours. And then we take all the night classes and go through, and I help with the kids class. And I did that. Basically, I was training 12 hours a day. So yeah, I got it in 2 weeks, but I was training 12 hours a day for those 2
Well, yeah, that's a lot of mat time.
Right.
So, and it was also on top of each other. I mean, so 2 weeks later, 14 days later, I was in that same class where those two guys beat me up, and I submitted both of them. And Hoist had to give me he just gave me the blue belt.
Nice.
When you sparred back then, was there striking involved on the ground, or was it just straight grappling?
The Gracie's, Hoist has always been less tournament oriented. So we would do a lot of striking, and whether it's MMA gloves or slaps, like Hoist would always institute, like in class, a lot of slaps,
right,
to take the place of strikes. We did a good chunk of that. There was a lot of shark baiting. It was just great training. I mean, I got in great shape, and it was a blast. And I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. Like, I originally got involved with jiu-jitsu because I felt uncomfortable how easy Burke was able to manhandle me. As I spent all this time boxing, and it didn't work at all. I mean, I got killed.
Right.
I said I got to learn at least enough where somebody takes me down and get back up.
So after that initial 2 weeks, did you stay out there for the rest of the summer and still train?
I was out there for six or 7 weeks. I was there from June 1st to the middle of July.
And was blue belt the only promotion you got, or did you ever get any stripes before you came back?
No. They gave me their blue belt in 2 weeks, and then I stayed at that for quite a bit of time.
All right. So after you went back to New York, did you still train some places? Did you find places to hang out? Or
was Tony Joffrey, who John Burke got me involved. Tony Joffrey got John Burke involved. Tony Joffrey's a great kid. He's one of my favorite people. And
Rob, hold on 1 second. I love you. Do me one favor. I love you so much. Try to keep the phone a little away from me. We're looking up your nose hairs at this point. I would never in a million years want to interrupt you. And I love you so much. You're getting such great material out of you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tony Joffrey read an article in like Karate Kung Fu magazine in 1990 about the Gracies. And at the bottom, Gracie put his contact info. So Tony contacted him. And you want to talk about a great story. Tony goes out. He talks to Horian on the phone. And like, why don't you come out a week, try it out. So Tony gets in a plane and goes out to California in 1990. And takes Horian was going out of town for something. So Horian was like, look, I'm going to be out of town, but you're here. I'm going to have you work with my brother Hickson for a week. Tony had no freaking idea who this guy is. It's like a 30-something-year-old Hickson in his prime. And Tony's taking privates with this guy for an entire week.
Because at that point, Hoist Gracie was the pinnacle of everything that was jiu-jitsu.
No,
there was nothing that...
No, this is pre-UFC. This is 1990. This is
okay.
Freaking made a name.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is 1990 Hickson Gracie. And Tony goes out there. He stays at Horian's house. And he does a week of privates with Hickson. It was funny because Tony was a black belt in Taekwondo, and he really thought it meant something. And he went out there and like he says that Hickson's like, okay, this is what we're going to do today. And he says to Hickson Gracie, a prime Hickson Gracie, he goes, you know what? You're going to have to convince me this shit works first.
Oh my God! Probably the wrong guy to say that to.
No problem. And so Tony starts stretching and throwing kicks and doing all the stuff I guess you would do in Taekwondo. And Hickson's just like, let me know when you're ready. And Tony's like, I'm all stretched out. I'm ready to go. He goes, okay, let's go. Boom. Over in like 5 seconds. And he just gets murdered over and over and over. Like, holy shit. I love this stuff. And Tony would go back. He would learn for like a week with Hickson, Horian, and Hoist. And Hickson eventually became, like, he started with Hickson, but it eventually became Hoist. Him and Hoist created a really good bond, and Hoist became his instructor. So he'd go train with Hoist and Horian and Hickson in the beginning. And he'd come back and he needed somebody to train with. Well, his neighbor was John Burke, who was like a 17-year-old kid at the time.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm learning this great jiu-jitsu, this Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I need somebody. And John Burke was this impressionable kid. He was like, yeah, it sounds great. I'll do it. So he became Tony's punching bag. While Tony, but he'd literally learn a week at a time and come back. And so his progress was obviously a lot slower than it is like today when you go and you're immersed in this shit.
Right.
He'd get a week of jiu-jitsu twice a year, 3 times a year. And then John would get it from Tony. And then I became John's punching bag for a minute up in Binghamton. John was showing me the stuff he knew, or some of it. But like I said, John probably only had X number of lessons at that point. I think he just got his blue belt when I met him. And so I learned a little bit with John, and then we went out to Torrance, and then I became immersed in it. And when I came back, I'd met Tony. I'd met Tony before I left, I should say. And I met Royce at UFC 5. I actually met him there when Tony Francisco fought. And
for anybody that doesn't know, that was an inside shot.
An inside joke. He's watching this too, I'm sure.
I was in North Carolina, not the Staples Center. And I met Royce at the end of UFC 5, the first time I ever met him. He just finished the super fight with Shamrock, and he just connected with Burke somehow. They were like thick as thieves from day one. In fact, this is how cool Royce is. So Burke was out there as a kid. So Burke went out the summer of '94. That's where he got most of his training from. He went out for that summer.
Mm-hmm.
And right before he went out, he joined Tony for one of those weeks that Tony would go out in early '94. And John was like, I'm in love with this stuff. I want to come out here for the summer. Royce is like, you can stay in my house. You can stay in my apartment. You can stay in my house. So John, this 18-year-old kid or 19, whatever he was at that time, goes out and fucking Royce Gracie puts him up at his house for the entire summer.
That's awesome.
He would leave with Royce in the morning, go to jiu-jitsu, train with Royce, get all these, free training with Royce, and then come home with Royce at night. They'd eat dinner, go to bed, whatever, and he'd wake up in the morning, go back to training with Royce every day. He just basically shadowed Royce around for the entire summer.
What was the culture of the gym like at that time? Was it a more traditional atmosphere? I'm just curious about early jiu-jitsu and its foundations.
I loved the atmosphere. I loved the training. I met a lot of good people. I met a lot of douchebags too. But
I bet at that time there was a lot of tough guys that were looking to try to.
The only thing I could complain about really is at the time there was such a lack of tournaments and ways to compete that the Gracie tournaments became like the primary way you could compete and train. Because Gracie, the Royce and Orion were putting on these tournaments. I felt like, the way we have it at Gracie Tampa South, Gracie Bradenton, it's a very team environment. Everybody's open with their technique. If you have a problem, you can ask anybody. It wasn't that way back then. Like you'd roll with somebody like me and you were rolling, Kevin. You look at me and be like, he's about my size. I probably have to compete against this guy. And let's say you catch me in something. I'd be like, wow, that was cool. What'd you catch me in? I don't know.
Because you don't want to share nothing with anybody.
Nobody would share anything. It was really a sharing environment. And it was really annoying. The first guy who really opened up and shared, obviously John Burke did. He was the first guy who showed me everything. But everything he knew.
Well, I think the overall thought process and the overall culture of martial arts at that time was less about enjoying the art and more about making yourself into some killer, for lack of a better terminology, learning how to fight and learning how to do self-defense and learning how to become this typical martial artist.
Tournaments weren't a thing. And even when we did tournaments, like Horian had this rule where you could grab the sleeves, both sleeves for 3 seconds. That's it. If they caught you, even in training, if they caught you grabbing the sleeves longer than 3 seconds, they'd yell at you.
That's interesting.
Like one hand had to be in the collar working for a choke. You had to actively be improving position. You couldn't stall at all. And
they hated stalling.
Like I didn't even know stalling was a thing until I saw some of these, IFBJJ tournaments.
Right. IFBJJ. I love it. You don't even say it right.
What?
I said I loved it. You don't even say it right.
And coming from Kevin, that's
what's
something.
it called again?
IBJJF.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, I love that. I don't give a
fuck. Funny segue. Yeah, like I know Royce doesn't give a shit about the IBJJF either.
No,
but
he too.
Yeah, but when I went out there, I think 2017 to do No Gi Worlds with Kevin, Hoist just fucking showed up,
That's
man.
right, he did. He was there.
He just happened to show up, and he happened to see my match. And I remember I was feeling down because I lost by a judge's decision. And what's that?
Which means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember though I was a little bit bummed, but I went over to talk to Hoist, and he goes, "Hey man, you know they're always going to give it to the guy who looked better, and it's never going to be you."
That's so fucking true.
So you felt better about your jiu-jitsu, but not about your looks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think a lot of that too is predicated upon the whole, like, if your name isn't like Dos Santos or
Right.
you're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And most of the judges are Brazilian and blah blah blah. You get the idea.
believe me, I got the idea 20 years ago.
Right. So let's move on. So obviously most of your jiu-jitsu was self-taught. You I mean,
Yeah,
not self-taught, but
it was. I mean, I learned the principles of jiu-jitsu, like really sound principles from Hoist and Horion. But yeah, like a lot of the techniques were self-taught because I'd go out to California, come back, go out, come back, because that was the way it was.
right.
And then, you know, a few years in, I had a good base because, again, I really believe Hoist and Horion do a great job of teaching you the principles of jiu-jitsu. And from that point, you could really have a lot of self-discovery. But then I did a lot of training with Rodrigo at Henzo's when he got there as a blue belt. And he really inspired me a lot too. Like Hoist, Horion, and John Burke are Hoist and Horion, John Burke, and Rodrigo are the guys I really feel like guided my jiu-jitsu.
At what point did you really start, like what belt level did you really start to have an actual place where you said, this is where I do jiu-jitsu under supervision on a regular basis?
When I came back in July of 95, I had already kind of passed Tony because of the amount of experience I had. Tony Joffrey had opened up the first Gracie training network in New York. It was the first one they ever did. And Tony was like, you know, you have more experience than me now. Why don't you become the teacher? So I had 6 weeks of intensive jiu-jitsu training for that summer, and I became the teacher in July of 95. And I taught there until I left in September of 04 when I moved to Tampa. So I taught there for 9 years.
Oh, you taught?
Yeah.
Okay, at Joffrey's.
Yeah, at the Thornwood Training Association.
Were you still a blue belt at that time? Or, I mean, not that it matters back then, but.
Well, I started at 95. I got my purple belt in 98. I got my brown in 01, and I got my black in 04.
Okay.
And you became really good friends. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, it was just a month before I came to Tampa. Hoist didn't even know I was moving and opening up a school, and it just coincidentally worked out. He called me up before I even had plans to go to Tampa, and he said, you know, September of 04, you got to be in North Carolina.
Okay.
And I happened to get my black belt 2 weeks before I moved to Tampa.
That's awesome.
So how did you go from making a joke and Hoist looking at you like you had three heads to becoming like the friendship you have with him now is obviously very, very tight. What changed? Like what made you guys like connect?
You know, I really didn't think Hoist liked me the first 2 years, to be honest with you.
Well, I didn't think you liked me for the first 3 years either. I'm not so sure you still like me now either.
I love you. Yeah, no, it was just weird. Like Hoist, and I get it. Like I get it now. I didn't really get it then, but I get it now. Like Hoist rose to fame very quickly. Like overnight, he was a sensation with the UFCs, and everybody wanted to be his friend. Everybody wanted to get a piece of him, you know?
Right.
Like, I think he just kind of got a little, like Hoist is one of the most loyal friends I have, but like with Hoist, he's not a guy who's going to befriend you quickly. Like,
right.
You know, he kind of wants to know what you're about before he commits to being a friend with you. Once he's a friend, he'll do anything for you. He's a good dude.
I think too that you know, in my experiences as a coach, like I'm very leery to build friendships. Like I'll be nice to lower belts, white belts, and blue belts, and it's kind of like a thing people jab me about. Like you don't even talk to people unless they're a purple belt. But the reason being is because I see so many people come and go, and I see so many people that just leave. It's almost, I don't even want to build a relationship with someone on any kind of meaningful level until I understand they're at least committed on the same level that I am. Yeah. And I feel like they're not really going to understand what I have to say until they've reached a certain point of understanding of jiu-jitsu to where we can have a relationship on those levels.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and you know, you get so many different types in jiu-jitsu. A lot of them are great. Some of them are not so great. And yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I kind of pretty standoffish with people. So I get where Hoist is coming from more now than I did then. But like,
so how did you break through that?
We had this big, well, I won't get the details, but we had a big blowout where I told him to go fuck himself.
Why does that not surprise me?
And so many friendships are built that way, by the way.
I just got so mad about something irrationally, you know, my temper. And Hoist just caught me at the wrong time, at the wrong place. And I just screamed at him in front of people. And like everybody there was like, are you out of your mind? And like, it was one of those moments where I just got red with anger. And I said some shit I shouldn't have said. And then everybody was like, because he was still like the undefeated UFC champ at this point.
Right. The baddest man on the planet.
Like the dude I was rolling with at the time didn't even want to roll with me anymore because he didn't. So like the guy wouldn't roll. Like, and I'm like, and I like as soon as I yelled, I realized what I did, and I was like, I can't get those words back. Shit. And Hoist is just looking at me like he wants to murder me, and I'm like, oh my god, I just fucked everything up. And the next day, I'm walking down. This is how cool Hoist is. Like the next day, I'm walking down. He makes a joke. We start laughing, whatever it was, and we became friends. Like a week later, or a couple weeks later after that, he goes to somebody and takes him to the Tyson Bruno fight in Vegas, and he knew I was a big boxing fan. He bought me a T-shirt. He comes back and he's like, "Hey, come to my office." I'm like, "Oh no, what do I do now?" And I go upstairs. I go to his office. He's like, "Here," and he throws me a T-shirt. I go, "What's this?" He's like, "You like boxing, don't you?" I got you.
We just lost your audio.
Lost your audio, Rob.
But anyway,
yeah.
So you were explaining how you and Hoist became friends.
We were talking about the Buster Douglas fight.
You know, I had this little moment where I got really mad and I yelled at him, and I think he just appreciated, you know, because he had so many people trying to be his friend. And I think he kind of appreciated that somebody would kind of speak his mind a little bit. And it was weird. I just noticed a difference after that.
Right.
And we became friends. And you know, Sonny, like, me and Hoist have a unique relationship. Like,
yes.
I'm probably the only person on the planet who can get away with what I get away with.
Yeah, I would never dare talk to Hoist the way you talk to him. I mean, there's that song.
Like, and you got to remember, this is going on like while he was undefeated UFC champ.
Right.
And people were looking at me like, I cannot believe you just said that to that guy.
I remember Charlie McShane actually wrote that song and put it up on YouTube for the Jiu-Jitsu bards or whatever they're called. And
that was a great song. That's funny. If you guys,
talking about how
look it up. It's
Hoist had you in an armbar.
They wrote a song. It's hysterical, and it actually is all true.
Yeah, Hoist had you in some kind of an armbar, and you said, "Quick, somebody call immigration."
I said, "Let me get this guy deported. Call immigration."
So,
and remember, like, one, I was a purple belt at that point, so people on the East Coast really hadn't seen a purple belt. And two, they certainly never saw anybody talk to Hoist that way. And not only was Hoist a good sport, he laughed. You know, he took it in stride. He laughed about it. And Hoist has got a great sense of humor. In fact, he is the biggest practical joker I know.
Yeah, he's pulled a couple fast ones on myself.
That's saying a lot because you're friends with Matt Arroyo.
Nothing to do except torture you.
So quickly. Oh, he can't hear me, can he? We should put it on speaker. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? So quickly, I just wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you a question. Just now that we're talking about it, because you brought something else up about a fight. This is something that's really fun because I can remember being around because right around the time when Hoist was in the UFC, Mike Tyson was also considered the baddest man on the planet. And I know that you are, in particular, a pretty big Mike Tyson fan. I know you like Mike Tyson a lot.
Oh, yeah. A huge boxing fan, huge Tyson fan. I've actually met him and talked to him. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So curiously, and I know this is a question that comes up and it's a big hypothetical. It's like asking if, you know, Muhammad Ali would beat Mike Tyson. But how do you feel like at that time Hoist would have done against Mike Tyson in an actual fight?
He would have murdered him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even a question. He would have. I mean, Tyson is a phenomenal talent, and if you teach him some takedown defense,
right,
you'd have a real problem on your hands.
Right.
But you know, Mike Tyson, as he was was just a boxer. It's a very limited martial art compared to jiu-jitsu.
Right, and people didn't really understand that.
And you remember too, Elio Gracie challenged Joe Louis. He challenged pretty much every heavyweight champion since Joe Louis. And Hoist continued the tradition and challenged Tyson.
Oh, he did. I didn't know that.
They took out a newspaper article, or I'm sorry, an ad in the magazine. I forgot what magazine, but it was a well-known magazine. And Hoist took out an article challenging Tyson to a fight.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, Tyson monetarily wasn't going to take it. He would get paid phenomenally less fighting Hoist than he would what he was doing with boxing.
Right.
So obviously, it made no financial sense for him to do it. But I mean, they wanted that fight. Horion wanted that fight bad because it would have really showcased jiu-jitsu on the biggest stage. You know, if that fight happened, jiu-jitsu would have been even more popular than it is today.
Right.
You go ahead, Kevin.
Can you hear me?
And Tyson openly admits that he can get killed in MMA right now. He doesn't have the skill.
Yeah, exactly.
He openly said that to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that now I think boxers are really starting to recognize. I mean, not now. I think it's happened a long time ago.
I mean, if a boxer doesn't recognize it, then they're just, they're basically playing the ostrich defense.
Yeah, they're just trying to stick their head in the ground. So real quick, I'm curious again as the fact of why you feel like as a school in general, the Gracie Network is as successful as it is, and what you feel like you bring to the table that is different from other instructors. I mean, because it's undeniable the amount of talent that you've been able to produce. I think it's up to like 12 or 15 UFC fighters you put out, multiple world champions like that guy, Kevin Gallagher.
ADCs.
You're not gonna self-promote.
ADCC champs, or not champs, but
so
ADCC veterans, I should say.
I've been doing this for 25 years, and I pride myself on showing everything I know. And I've also been lucky with incredibly talented students who, just pick it up and run with it, like you, and obviously Matt Arroyo and Sonny. I mean, we can go through the list of all the killer black belts that we have at this point. It's insane. I really think that, our network here in Tampa, you really can't find better.
And you in of yourself,
or there's only a few places in this country that have the amount of talent that we have.
No, and this is really true. And I say that full like willingly, because I train all over the fucking world. I'm all over the place. I train with people all over everywhere. And the talent pool that we train in, when we have our pro trainings at South, like, it's amazing the amount of talent that I have in one room to train with me to keep me prepared. And I say that's the reason why I'm as good as I am.
It's almost like Los Angeles. Los Angeles has been inundated with jiu-jitsu for 30 years now, more. So you now have a lot of black belts concentrated in the LA area, in San Diego. On the East Coast, we are one of the few hubs that has that type of concentration of talent in Tampa.
I agree.
We're all at the same school.
Do you feel like your ability to be an innovator in the sport has anything to do with that? Because I personally believe that there's something about you that you bridge the gap. Like you have an old school traditional jiu-jitsu background when you came from the gi. You train straight from the source in Torrance, but you've managed throughout that time to incorporate new age, particularly in your no-gi aspects. It almost feels like you are an innovator and a creator, where a lot of these other old school jiu-jitsu practitioners seem to be like dinosaurs that are stuck in the past, that are refusing to move on to the future, or even more than that, stifle that.
I think it's more of a function of how I started, because I like I said, I got the fundamentals and the overall strategy from Hoist and Horion, but I was left to my own devices here when I was in New York. For huge periods of time, I was the instructor as a blue belt, as a 6-week blue belt. I was the instructor. So I had to innovate. I had to figure out, if somebody asked me a question, I had to figure out the answer.
Right. So
I think as a function of that, I had to, think through the moves a little bit more at that stage where, not that it's a bad thing, but, the way schools are now, you get spoon-fed everything. I didn't have that option. I didn't have YouTube when I was in 1995. I didn't have a school down the street with a black belt that was giving me answers. So when somebody asked me a question, I had to figure it out. and it allowed me to, I think, to study the moves more and figure out my own answers.
I think that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of these older, more established jiu-jitsu schools with black belts from Brazil, like they spent a large portion of their career being taught almost what not to do as opposed to what to do. And a lot of times what not to do.
I never had somebody over me telling me I couldn't do something.
Right. You had to evolve on your own.
A path, and it would be a worthless path, and I'd have to go back. The path didn't work. But sometimes I go down, and I can't tell you how many times over the years I'd come up with something. And I'm not saying I invented anything, because nothing is invented. Everything is already out there. But I would come up with shit on my own, and then find out it was a thing. And go like, oh, okay, I came up with that by myself, but somebody had already invented it. I mean, nothing is new. Everything is the same.
One of the big...
There's only so many ways you can break it on. You just keep reinventing the wheel over and over again. But I had to reinvent it and figure it out a lot on my own.
One of the big differences that I noticed, Rob, when I came down from Connecticut, and people may not know, but I actually moved to Florida specifically to train with you after having met you and trained with you a bunch of times in Connecticut. And one of the big differences that I noticed was that there was a lot more attacking, and I think that was a product of not wearing the gi, because I know that you don't like to wear the gi.
That's gay.
Not a bad way, though. Or in the bad way, I guess. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying.
Kevin's always worried about the PC. No, so yeah, I definitely noticed that there was a lot more attacking, and there was a lot more emphasis on offense, which I think no gi kind of breeds that a little bit, because you have to move. You can't just hold on to fabric to stop attacks. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I agree, and I think a lot of that is true, what you just said. In terms of the no gi, I think just like a faster game, less stalling. You have to be a little bit more aggressive, and a lot of it, I think, had to do with my personality. When I rolled, a real moment for me in jiu-jitsu was rolling with Rodrigo for the first time.
Yes.
He's aggressive as shit. And I was like, oh, wow, this is different. Like, I didn't realize it could be this offensive. And Rodrigo Gracie, yeah.
Yeah. Rodrigo, it's funny because Hoist will beat you up.
Inspired me quite a bit.
Hoist will beat you up in a nice way. Rodrigo will fuck you up.
Yeah, Rodrigo will just murder you over and over and over again until you just can't do anything anymore. He just murders you. I mean, as a blue belt, purple belt, I was taking privates with him down at Henzo's. And Henzo, too, murdered me. He's also very aggressive. And right. I really enjoyed that style. And for the amount of time I trained with Rodrigo, he really was a disproportionate influence on me. I like the aggressiveness. I think it fit my personality better. And that's just the way I wanted to go. Nothing wrong. I mean, jiu-jitsu I think jiu-jitsu is really a defensive art at its core, but you could make it aggressive. You could make it offensive.
So obviously,
Royce, I mean, Royce is not, he's not super strong. He's not super athletic, but he really is everything jiu-jitsu should be. He's a little skinny guy who could beat big guys. But right. if you have some athletic ability, why not make it aggressive?
So, obviously you've built a pretty big empire down here in Tampa. One of your black belts is Matt Arroyo. Matt has done huge. He's run with the torch, and he's created some killers. One of them is Matt Frivola. Did you get a chance to watch the Matt Frivola fight last night?
Yeah, I missed the first round. I was up in Scranton. I just got in today.
Scranton.
And I was in Scranton doing a seminar at Jeff Reese's place. And we got to the UFC, and I missed the first round, so I was sweating because I walked in, I saw Frivola lose a point in the second round for that up kick.
I don't think he actually lost the point.
Like, I don't know what happened in the first round. Then Frivola won the third, and I'm like, this all hangs on a round I didn't even see. And so I was sweating the decision a good bit because, Matt, even if he won the second round, it was still a draw because he would have lost a point for the kick.
He actually didn't lose a point, though. They
won the third, but if he lost the first, it would have been a problem.
What do you think about that rule, by the way? Because I think it's a shitty rule. I understand the idea of no kicking a ground opponent because they don't want to have sorry guys. They don't want to have soccer kicks involved. You don't want to have a guy on his hands and knees get kicked in the face. But I think the interpretation of the rule as it lies in that particular instance is stupid because you're dealing with an up kick at that point. And the only reason it was illegal was because he was on his knees.
Yeah. No, I agree. But by the same token, I think they should lose the gloves, and I think they should go back to the old UFC rules and no time limits. So
yeah, me too.
Nobody would ever sanction my idea of MMA. But that's to me what like Hoist fought under no rules, no gloves, because gloves they don't help the grappler, they help the striker.
Right.
You're not going to break your hand on somebody's head if you have gloves on,
right? Or
you have less chance.
Right, and they make it harder for submissions. It's harder to get a submission,
and it's harder to get chokes.
Right,
you get somebody's back, they grab the inside of the glove.
Yeah, you almost have to alter. You almost have to alter your approach because of it.
Yeah, you do, and no hitting to the back of the head. And I get it. I get to say everybody's going to yell at me. I get the safety piece of it, but I'm just talking about real life fights. That's the whole point. Orient's whole vision was, let's see what happens in a real fight. Let's see what works and what doesn't.
So real quick, what do you feel?
Kind of neutered.
Real quick, what do you think? What do you think in terms of like jiu-jitsu's onset as an actual martial art versus what is what we have in MMA? Do you feel like there is any real differences to the approach? Do you feel like it's a softer? Do you feel like it's mutated from its original onslaught to what we have in MMA? Because nothing's the same as a street fight. It never is.
Gay.
Right.
And like the reliance on the gi and some of these positions that have no absolute practical applications in a real fight. Now people are becoming experts in these grappling only positions. And to me, it's like, I've never had a student walk into my school and say, you know what, I want to become a great tournament fighter. Everybody comes into the school and says, I want to learn how to fight. So if I get jumped, I could win, or I could defend myself. And it somehow morphs into this, inverted guard crap.
Rob,
and I don't get it.
I always chuckle when you come and do a Q&A at Gracie Bradenton and somebody asks you about the half guard or the berimbolo, and you always have the same answer.
Yeah, it's for faggots and women.
I love you, man. I love you, man. Well, let's move it on, man. Let's get you the hell out of here because I don't want you to miss your freaking show, and I got to drive back to Tampa too. But before you go, what do you feel like? You got any predictions on Game of Thrones tonight? Who's going to die? Who's going to live? Who's going to screw who?
I don't know who's dying tonight, but I think Jon Snow is going to be Azor Ahai. I think Daenerys is going to die at the end of the season.
Wow, yeah, that's interesting because I've just watched the shows. I never read the books, and I know that you've read all the books, so you're that guy. You're not just a casual Game of Thrones fan. I'm a
Game of Thrones certified geek.
Yeah, right. You're a freaking Targaryen to the core.
They're reenacting the whole Azor Ahai myth, where the prince that was promised.
Right.
And in the books, Azor Ahai tries to fasten a sword that's going to beat the White Walkers, and he tempers it in water and it breaks. Then he tempers it in a lion's heart and it breaks. And then he tempers it in his wife's heart. I don't know how he thought of that, but he tempers it in his wife's heart. And her name was Misa. Misa, she died.
Clearly.
But the sword somehow took on some magical properties. And I think Jon Snow, because he really is the song. The Game of Thrones is really called the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
And that is Jon Snow. He is the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, because he's part Stark, part Targaryen.
He's part Stark and part Targaryen. So right. He is the Song of Ice and Fire. So he kind of has to be the guy sitting at the end because he is the Song of Ice and Fire.
And obviously he ain't gonna die because that son of a bitch is getting some shit. He was underwater with zombies holding down. So. He ain't dying.
No, he's the safest bet to be living at the end of the series.
Right.
I think they're going to kill off a bunch though this season. I think Jaime's going to die.
I think Jaime's gone too.
Probably early.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to die early. I think Cersei's got to go.
I think Jaime dies
towards the end of the season.
I think Jamie dies in order to sacrifice himself to kill Cersei. I think there's some way or another.
Remember, there's a lot of foreshadowing in those books, and you know, when Cersei went to that like future teller lady, the witch,
right? Oh yeah, wait long, yeah.
She said that you're going to be killed by your Valancourt, which means your little brother. And technically, Jamie is the little brother. So is Tyrion, but Jamie's also a little brother. He was born after her.
Tyrion's the really little
he
brother.
Technically is the little brother. So, you know, George Martin is big with these prophecies, and it just makes sense between the Azor Ahai prophecy and Cersei's prophecy that they're going to work it into the show. Like I said, I think Jon Snow is a pretty safe bet, or I should say, Aegon Targaryen is his real name. He's probably a safe bet to being at the end of the show.
Yeah.
How much does
I forget the writer's name? What's the writer's name? The guy who wrote the book you just said.
George R.R. Martin.
Yeah. How much is Martin involved in writing these TV shows? Does he have a high?
He was a lot. He wrote pretty much an episode every season, except for I think last one. He's been dedicated to try and get his 6th book out. It only took him 9 years to do it, 10 years to do it, but. He kind of backed away from writing the show and being part of the show this season, but he's been a very active part throughout the show.
I imagine he still has to have some kind of influence over it, though. I'm sure they ask him for his opinions and whatnot.
Well, a funny story was when Benioff and Weiss, D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, who do the showrunners, the producers, they met with Martin to pitch the idea of putting it on HBO because he had already turned down doing a movie. And he said, no, I'm not going to do like a Tolkien thing. I don't think my books will work well in a movie situation. And so they pitched HBO. And they said, look, it's going to be, you know, X number of episodes, you know, a lot of time to really flesh out the characters and all that shit. And he asked them one question. He said, who's Jon Snow's mother? And they got it right. And this is, you know, so they had to have read the books to get it right. And you have to read them carefully to get it right.
Right.
And he got it right. And they got it right. So he trusted them. And he actually handed them the outline. He's had this thing outlined and mapped out for decades.
He just hasn't read it yet.
And the major plot points. And he gave them his outline. So they already know how the book ends. Even though they're 2 books away. They've had it since 2011.
Right. And he might just change the whole goddamn thing just to tell everybody to fuck off anyway.
Well, it's going to change. I mean, you know, obviously they've already come out and said that the book and the movie are going to be the book and the TV show are going to be a little bit different because you know the show had to thin down the amount of characters. The book has just way more characters, way more fleshed out.
Yeah, I need to sit down and read them books, man.
They're the best. I mean, you just can't put them down. I've read probably each book 5 times.
Wow, I got to read them.
And they're like 1,500 pages each.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, before we let you go, Rob, I just want to throw it out there that, you know, you're available for seminars. You've created a kingdom down here in Tampa. You've created multiple UFC fighters and ADCC vets, and you know. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you for privates or for seminars, how can they do that?
You can hit me up on my email, hobbyk71@gmail. Hit me up on Facebook or Kahn. Those are probably 2 easiest ways to get a hold of me. You know, you could, email and Facebook are probably the 2 easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Cool.
And just for reference, man, like, thank you very much for doing the show. This is probably one of my favorite interviews, just talking to you, because again, it's very rare that you find people that have been around the sport as long as you have. And when you find that person, it's always cool to hear their point of view, because people,
you know, it's cool. You guys are mentioning it. Like, I just forwarded out a picture on Facebook from 1996.
I saw that.
Somebody sent me a picture, or it was on Facebook, from the instructor training program in 1996. I was in a little class, and someone sent me a picture. And it's great. It's me, John Burke, Don Crouch, who runs the MMA lab out in Arizona. Mark Beinmeister. All the old school original instructor program guys are in that picture.
Isn't the MMA lab where Benson Henderson comes from?
Ben Henderson, yeah. He came from the lab. He's with Crouch. And a bunch of killers have come out of Crouch's gym. And John's an amazing instructor. We actually started jiu-jitsu the same day. We walked in, I flew out, when I went out in June of 95, John was out from Colorado. The same day we showed up. And we were in class. I'm like, that's my first day. He's like, it's my first day too. And we started literally the same day, and we've been friends for 25 years. And John Crouch is an amazing guy, and he runs the lab out there and does a great job. He's had Ben Anderson, the UFC champ. He's had a bunch of guys come out of that. I mean, it's like a who's who of grappling out there.
Right.
And you see, John Crouch has put multiple people in the UFC at this point.
Yeah,
he's doing a really good job out there.
High level people in the UFC, guys that are freaking UFC champions.
Yeah, John's a killer instructor. He's great. I've been out to the lab and I've done seminars out there. It's a great place. I mean, it's a really high tech facility. It's beautiful. Well, not
to pat you on the back again, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like I don't feel like I've ever in my life trained with anyone that has as deep a jiu-jitsu mind as you do. You really are a truly. When I got my black belt, I gave you this nod to you. You really have an almost savant level of jiu-jitsu knowledge that shows every time you teach.
I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, yeah, my talent is teaching jiu-jitsu instead of making money.
Well, notice I said savant, almost in an autistic kind of way.
I find all these ways to be break arms and choke people out, but I can't make money to save my life.
It's tough to serve two masters, brother. I'm right there with you, my man. Well, dude, man. Again, thank you so much for your time, bro. I know you're a busy guy, and I know you hate doing this shit, but I also know you love the spotlight, so go fuck yourself. So,
you guys are my brothers. You guys are my brothers. I love you guys.
All right, bro.
We
have
love
a good day, man. Thank you. And go watch Game of Thrones, man.
All right, guys.
See you, bud.
9 o'clock tonight, people.
Yes. That was cool, man.
I love that he plugged Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So one more time for everybody, if you didn't hear, because it was kind of hard for him to hear at the end there, it's Hobby K 71. That's HOBBY 71. No, Hobby K, HOBBYK 71 at gmail.com, or just find him on Facebook under Rob Kahn.
Man, get this guy in for a seminar.
Get him in for a seminar.
There's no one else that I could say would be a better seminar for you than Rob Kahn. He teaches a class one night a week at Gracie Tampa, and it's packed all the time. And I said this when I got my black belt. Like, there's a certain point of, like, I used to take this one class with Rob because I trained with Matt in Matt's school, so I didn't train.
Sure.
With Matt. Rob wasn't my instructor, and he always says, "Well, I didn't give you my black belt, and they give you a black belt, you got it from Matt." But I'm under his umbrella and all that other shit. But I used to always say this when I got my black belt. I said this, that like the amount of time that I've trained with Rob, as far as like training under an actual coach, is probably 5-10% of my actual training time. The amount of information I've learned from Rob probably constitutes upwards of 40-50% of my jiu-jitsu, like go-to things that I say, this is what I learned. I'm like, I learned this from Rob Kahn, and that's my go-to stuff I learned from Rob Kahn. The guy's amazing. So
he is the district manager. It's funny because when somebody
wrote that down, by the way, to make sure he said that.
It's funny because when someone wants to complain about me, which is not often, by the way, but when someone wants to complain about me, they'll call Rob like he's my boss. And Rob will just call me up right after and be like, some asshole just called me up. Some asshole just called me up and was bitching about you, by the way.
I call him every week.
That's our engineer finally with a microphone.
You guys, there's more to come with Kara with the microphone.
Yes.
We're going to have some gold with Kara and Sonny on the microphone. It's going to happen. I'm surprised we got through that without a curse word with the technical difficulties we had this time. I thought for sure.
No, I'm sure there was a couple.
Yeah.
We had to go low tech there. We'll have to cut that up in post,
we'll figure it out
as Kevin likes to say.
We'll fix it in post. Well, let's get out of here, man. I love you guys, but I want to get home and watch freaking Game of Thrones. So freaking.
You two, you fucking nerds with that shit.
I got an hour drive ahead of me still, man. I'm gonna get my ass home, comfortable. Actually, going to my mom's house and watching it.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
You're gonna watch Game of Thrones with Mom?
Yeah, I got her into it right when the last season came on 2 years ago. I let her watch it, and now she watches it.
All right, so let me ask you this: if I wanted to get into Game of Thrones, should I go all the way back to the beginning?
Oh yeah, yes.
Oh,
you gotta watch the.
Yeah, you can't jump.
But Sonny, man, I'm telling you, like once you watch the first 2 episodes, you got to watch the first 3 or 4. it will be such a part. It won't even become a chore. You'll have it done. It'll become your life. You'll have it done. You'll have it done. If you start watching it now, I can almost guarantee you, but by the time the 4th episode, the final episode is aired, you will be caught up because you'll watch it nonstop. It'll draw you in.
So what is it, on HBO or something?
HBO, yeah.
All right. Well,
give it a shot.
Yeah. So again, everyone, thanks for your patience. I know that we had some technical difficulties this time.
No judges needed.
Yes.
25% off. Old Man Grappling Hour. The best equipment in the business. Oh, no judges needed. Oh, no. Nice little sweatshirt, t-shirts. I've got my heel hooker.
Believe it says heel right there. I know you can't see it, but he's not, Kevin is actually not a hooker, although sometimes I wonder.
Kevin once called me a hooker.
That's right. Depends on how late in the month it is, how many bills I got. There's always a price for everything.
So yeah, no judges needed. OMGH is the promo code. OTB Delights and CDB You and Me.
By the way, CBD You and Me is awesome. By the way,
I ordered some products from them.
So did I.
On my own.
I got the Godfather. What'd you get?
No, I just went in and just ordered like
chewies and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But when I ordered, a bunch of their team was like out of town on some kind of like seminar or something, and so
and I'll tell you what, like I message those guys all the time, and they're on top of everything.
Oh yeah,
every post I put up, every post we put up, and my post or your post when we
and they're very responsive.
They're very responsive, really, really good dudes, and really cool people that they do things like that. And they were very. I messaged them, they messaged me right back. They're very cool with their sponsored athletes and sponsored podcasts and sponsorships, and they're very receptive to being involved, which is a good thing. And they have top notch products. Their new product is this Godfather tincture. What's the little stuff, the little drip CBD?
Oh,
drips.
Okay. No, I didn't get that. I just got like the gummy bears and
apparently it's got, I don't know what any of it means, but it's got 3,000 milligrams of freaking CBD oil and all this other stuff. The guy, who's the they call him the colonel or the general. He's the not Fabio Guerrero, but he's the catch wrestling guy down in Miami. Mike, the big crazy tall ball headed guy.
You're asking the wrong dude.
Jesus. His name's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm not going to Google it, but he came up with he's the sponsored athlete and helped have some influence on the new product. It's called Godfather, the Godfather tincture, the Godfather CBD oil. And I'm pretty excited about it. I ordered some. It's coming soon. So
cool.
Give it a shot. All right. I'm out.
All right, guys. Peace, love, and hair grease.
There it is. Boom. Deuces.